What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin.
And we have yet another album review for you, and one that you guys voted on. We were, kind of, lost in the releases that were coming out this week because there were a lot of them we wanted to cover, so we wanted to see what you guys wanted us to cover. And this was the number one out of the 5 that I put up, so we are going to go over the latest offering from Kvaen, the Formless Fires. This also comes out on the 21st of June on Metal Blade Records. In fact, this is their Metal Blade debut. I believe they were on Redefining Darkness before this. Yeah. This band formed in Sweden in 2019, and I mean, it's one of those where it's hard to say it's a band because technically it is a one-man band. One Jacob Bjornfot. This is his third offering with this band. I got into them with their first album, The Funeral Pyre, and their last album, The Great Below, was a year-ender for me in 2022. So needless to say, I was really eager to go over this one. This is, baseline, call it black metal. I think that's pretty fair. Pagan, black metal, Viking, black metal. It definitely has those themes, but it also includes a lot of other elements in it, and that is kind of my main draw to this band because this guy just knows how to write killer songs.
Surprise, surprise, I'd never heard of these guys.
That rhymes.
And so it does. This is a weekend for rhymes, so stay tuned for my fire mixtape. Anyway, yeah, I'd never heard of these guys. My journey into black metal has been slow but steady here, so when Nick told me it was a black metal album, I said, okay, why not? And here we are.
Now, in terms of other projects that Jacob has been involved in, I really didn't recognize any except for he was briefly in the band The Duskfall, which, back in the mid-2000s, I was buying up anything that was melodic death metal, and that was one of the bands I got, and they were pretty decent. But Jacob does pretty much everything on this album except for the drums. The drums are entirely done by Frederick Anderson, formerly of Amon Amarth, and I believe he might still be in this ending. I'm not entirely sure. But I thought that was kind of an interesting pick because, honestly, outside of this ending, I've always seen Frederick as more of a just groove-based kind of drummer because of his long tenure in Amon Amarth. But listening to this band before, I knew that, it's not going to be groove-based because this band likes to pull out all sorts of cool riffy tricks. And again, while I would say this entire album is very much in the realm of just straight-up black metal, there's a lot of interesting twists and turns, and honestly, variety. Variety is kind of the big thing on this.
And something I really like is that every single track on this album is different. Now, obviously, there are some parts that, coincide with other songs as far as, stylistic approach, but every song has something different to bring to the table and shows off their diversity and their affinity for dynamics.
Yeah, that is a big thing on here. And the way this album is paced, you get songs that kind of pair up for almost kind of like parts of a story. I feel like there is a narrative, and I don't entirely understand all of it, not just because there's a couple of songs in here that are in Swedish. I definitely didn't understand those. But I feel like this album kind of has a story-like flow, and it complements the music really well. And again, musically, it's kind of all over the place. The first 2 tracks, the title track and Traverse the Nether, come in just raucous, heavy, fast, lots of atmospheric tremolos, blast beats, and a huge knack for melody. Melody is a universal binding agent on here, and it is so driven by the absolutely lush, layered, and just creative guitar work on here.
Yeah, first of all, I like how the Formless Fires, the title track, actually comes in. There's no filler. They don't waste any time getting to it, just a big riff, and again, lots of melody, and there's always melody going on, whether it be in the foreground or the background, even within the layering, there's always just something that is melodic. The Ancient Gods, which is just kind of more of a mid-tempo banger, very evil feeling, and this is the first time where acoustic melody appears, and they do a really, really good job of building from acoustic melodies. First of all, very pretty, very clear production, clean, crisp, you can hear everything, and it's still super cold, everything is stage 3 frostbite, your thumbs are ready to fall off, but yet you can still hear everything, and it's still lush and pretty.
Your ears haven't fallen off yet.
Or you get thrashy bangers like Basilisk. Basilisk is an intense thrashy banger through and through.
That song is flat out vicious. Honestly, the first thing it reminded me of was Impaled Nazarene. It just kind of goes for the throat and just kind of lays on the intensity. In fact, that was probably the most like exhausting drum performance on the album. Like
it's up there.
Yeah, dude's just going, but man, the riffs just keep flying. And dude, every lead on here is kind of just as dynamic as the album. They always fit the mood, and like sometimes they're more somber, sometimes they're more uplifting. Sometimes you just get like a thrashy ripper, like Basilisk. There's some like really cool like dive bombs and some whammy bar work on there. It just sounds like the lead wants to fight you. And of course, if you've been following this channel for a number of years, you know that I like riffy black metal, and this album has a ton of riffs. Basilisk alone just has an absolutely infectious riff for a multitude of reasons. One, it's awesome, it's vicious, it's just kind of snarling, and two, it kind of sounds like the little tag on ESPN SportsCenter. I couldn't get it out of my head.
Yay, sports ball.
But this album captures a lot of moods on here. Like Ancient Gods were brought up, you know, kind of sinister and dark, but also very somber, like very defeated, especially at the end. The somber leads that come in over the tremolos, they just feel just anguished. But on the other side of that, you have a song like, and forgive me, this is in Swedish, so I'm about to ruin it, De Dodas Sang.
Perfect.
Maybe, probably not perfect Swedish.
I know it is. Let's get off the train that we can't pronounce foreign things. We've got it. It's De Dodas Sang.
Dude, we live on that train. But that song, like, kind of immediately feels more victorious, more triumphant. Builds in beautifully. Actually, probably one of my favorite, you know, build-ups on this album. Acoustic melodies, you have this cool drum pattern behind it, and it builds into just this flat-out catchy riff that just wants to conquer the day. Like, this song was probably about a Viking that just got up and was like, you know what? I'm going to kick the shit out of anything in my way. Nothing has stopped me, unless it's like a dragon or a bear. I kind of draw the lines there. But anything else, I'm whooping its ass. But yeah, the song is just, you know, bright, and it just feels like, you know, empowering. And again, that kind of contributes to the dynamics on this album. Like, it's also a, you know, peak and valley effect with emotion as well as just the songwriting too.
Perpetual Darkness, pretty much right from the get-go, opens up with this big snare march. Like, it's very, very folky. Very. But pretty much from the get-go, they're hammering on this awesome tremolo, and underneath that tremolo, they have an acoustic melody, and like we had to stop it and actually listen for it a couple times, but it's there, and the accent points that are on that acoustic melody mesh really well with the tremolo and the march groove that's going on, and makes it incredibly unique.
There's a lot of killer harmonies, and like the guitar work isn't always just about like flashiness and the riffs or the leads, even though like every lead on here is flashier than hell.
Killer.
It's more about the creativity in terms of like the layering and the harmonies and such to create these giant walls of sound. Perpetual Darkness and the last track, The Wings of Death, have these just absolutely huge sounding lush guitars, and it's just layers of them. And one of the cool things on this album across the board, regardless of what blackened avenue they go down, there are lots of lead melodies to accompany these great riffs. And generally, the only way to make a great riff even better is if you harmonize it. And apparently, Jacob gets that because they are frequently harmonized on here, and they just kind of land these giant hooks every time.
And it's interesting. They're always at the right point. You ever been jamming a song and you're like, man, you know what would make this even cooler is a harmony. And literally every single time I thought that, here came this awesome harmony, and I was like, all right, sweet. And yeah, we briefly touched on leads. The solos in this album, holy shit. They are all super good, and they all fit the vibe of the song. Like I said, how everyone is different. Like on the shreddy songs, you get a more shreddy lead. On the folky one, you get this like very tuneful, oftentimes like neoclassical kind of vibe. Really, the lead on the last track, The Wings of Death, that's probably one of my favorites. That lead is killer. And that lead is harmonized throughout at least the first probably 10 seconds of that. It's all harmonized and it's beautiful. But yeah, all the leads, holy shit.
And that one is actually one of the guests on here, Chalk Mole. It's the stage name for one of the guitarists for Dark Funeral. I'm not entirely sure I'm actually saying that right. And I looked at his actual name and was like, you know what? I definitely won't say that right. So
sorry.
We're just going to go with this one. But yeah, the lead on there I think is beautiful. And it kind of, you know, captures the whole, like, kind of cold, dissonant vibe on that song in particular. But another guest that shows up in here is on the second track, Traverse the Nether. One, Sebastian Ramstad of Necrophobic, and Yeah, that dude is an amazing lead player, and his lead is absolutely crushing, and it's also at a point where the song kind of shifts tracks a little bit. This song is probably one of the most dynamic and a little bit, like, different in terms of the other tracks. While it definitely has, like, it's more blasty, cold tremolos, like, you know, the kind of standard stuff you expect out of black metal, there are some interesting riff changes on there that are a little bit outside of black metal. Once the cold tremolos drop out at the beginning, it goes into this weird kind of like dissonant, crawling, almost atonal riff. Like if you threw on heftier, sludgier distortion, that riff would not sound out of place on Demolish's Nestpipe. It's got this kind of creepy, crawly vibe to it. There's a really cool groove over it. But when the lead comes in, the song shifts tracks again and goes to like kind of flat out melodic death metal, and that is where Sebastian just comes in and just tears up the fretboard with this amazing lead. Absolutely crushing moment on this album.
I mean, we jammed the Necrophobic record. That is still a favorite jam, so I don't expect anything less. But yeah, this album is crawling with awesome dynamics, awesome shifts. The drum work, too. All right, look, I've listened to a lot of them on Amarth, and I'm used to just that straightforward, just kind of double kick, double time groove with occasional blasts. Something that surprised me was there's a ton of actually just like straightforward groove in here, and it's not just like D beats. There was even a flat out like swingy groove in the Ancient Gods during that chuggy stomp. The beat just kind of sways back and forth. Huge turnovers, and they often come out of tribal grooves, and just like he's constantly moving, and it's not just straightforward blast beats or straightforward double time grooves. Like there's a lot of different dynamic and a lot of different like cool accents that come out of the drum work. And it just brings an extra sort of like flavor to the album.
And extra flavors are kind of the thing on here. Like, you know, again, frequent use of lead melodies on top of the main riff. You know, lots of big solo sections and, again, like frequently shifting song dynamics. But none of it feels like it's too much. None of it feels intrusive, like, okay, they kind of overdid that section. And they're wise about, like, shrinking a song down to be a little bit more straightforward, like Tornet's saying. That's also in Swedish, and I probably screwed it up. But that song is almost kind of a throwback to, like, you know, like a more mid-tempo kind of second wave black metal. Like, it kind of reminded me a lot of, like, you know, Dark Throne, Celtic Frost, maybe a little bit of, like, later Satyricon, where they kind of got into, like, some more, like, straightforward rock grooves, but kind of throw in, like, some just nasty black metal riffs on top of that.
A little bit of Midnight I got too in the very beginning.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's just straightforward, chuggy, kind of stompy, just a bang your head type of deal. But yeah, once again, they do enough to flash it up to make it unique.
Yeah, the Middle Eastern melodies that come in, and honestly, the song has a really hooky chorus. It's still screamed, like all the vocals on here for the most part are just blackened shrieks, and they sound vicious as hell. But they find ways to inject melody in these songs and make them, you know, catchy, but also not cheesy. Like, even the folky elements, because generally when I hear, like, folk's kind of included, like, oh, God, please don't sound like Corpaclani. You know, they're fun. They are fun. They like doing songs about the different kinds of liquor that they ingest, and that's a fun novelty. I'm sure they talk about other things in their songs, but I don't really listen to it that much. But this avoids kind of coming across as cheesy. Like, the folky melodies are injected into the songs in clever ways where they still come across as very heavy, dark, and sinister, or triumphant without, you know, coming off as like 1950s Superman. Like, oh, don't worry, Timmy, I'll save your cat out of the tree. Like, I mean, that's way too, like, American cheesy, but, you know, I'm sure there's like a Swedish equivalent of that.
Thanks, Superman.
There are points in here where I had to remind myself that this was a one-man black metal project, because it kind of doesn't fit into that, you know, stereotypical, you know, sort of idea of a one-man, you know, black metal project, because a lot of people will think like, yeah, it's bedroom black metal, and there's no way a girl has ever been in this bedroom at any point. It's just been this dude and his Casio keyboard and his guitar and his outright negativity.
His three-legged cat and a bag of Cheetos and cigarette burns everywhere and half-empty Diet Coke bottles.
A lot of crusty socks. You know.
Yeah.
We've met the dude. This is very well produced. This is very forward-thinking in terms of, like, you know, the songwriting. Like, this is really, focused on dynamics, hooks, but also riffs, and it still has plenty of room for all of the black metal atmosphere. So it kind of does pretty much everything right, at least as far as I'm concerned in black metal. In terms of any negatives on here, I'm kind of hard pressed to really find any. Like, some songs didn't hit as hard. Admittedly, I think the Wings of Death, it kind of takes a little while to get going, but once you hit that chorus riff, it's just an instant hook. And man, does the end of that just soar. And it's soaring like, not like a bird, but like a big devil floating over a city that's just about to just strip the souls out of everyone. I don't know.
That sounds like a great time. Come to Toledo, huge devil.
Yeah. Tornet Sang was another one that, while I really like the song, I feel like that song ended a little bit too soon. Like, I feel like the end of it was building towards like some bigger melodies. And this album kind of likes the long fade out, which I like that, but I feel like they used it a bit much, at least in the front half. And that one was the one that really kind of hit me as like, you're fading out already. I mean, it's a great melody, but I feel like it was building towards maybe an even bigger hook or revisiting the really sick, just straightforward black metal riff that was on there. But outside of that, I don't really have a lot of complaints.
Yeah, I really don't either. My couple of issues with the record came in the very last two songs. While the Perpetual Darkness I thought was pretty cool, it got a little like folky for my taste towards the end. And then the Wings of Death, it just took a minute to get going. I thought it kind of drug a little bit at the beginning. And while it was a cool song, I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the rest of the record. But like, I don't have any production gripes. I don't have any gripes about the way the songs flowed. They flow incredibly well. And for that reason, I'm going to give it 4 stars. As you know, I'm still getting into black metal, so of course there's still, things that don't necessarily sit right with my ears, but I still found it really enjoyable. Tons of melody, tons of awesome riffs, tons of awesome harmonies. I can't tell you how awesome the harmonies are in this record, and the lead work is stellar. And once again, I like the fact that from song to song, there's something different that'll catch your ear in every song to make the song memorable. Like, I can call out specific songs for being awesome just because I remember the parts that are in them, especially Basilisk and De Dota Sang, if I'm saying that right, which I'm probably not, and the Ancient Gods, and again, just tons of awesome things, but I really, really enjoyed it. The drum work is killer, the guitar work is entertaining, and the vocals, the high shrieks are starting to grow on me more. The death metal guy in me wants to hear growls, and I realize that it's not a death metal band, and I'm probably not going to hear growls, but they're growing on me nonetheless. But I did enjoy this record a lot. If you're a fan of bands like Midnight, or Garia, or Celtic Frost, or a litany of other bands that I'm probably not akin to or attuned to, that Nick will probably tell you, you're going to want to check this out. I do recommend it, though. I had a great time. It was a good listen.
I am also at a 4. I mean, it could turn into a 4.5. I really enjoy this album for being so dynamic. I don't know if it's as good as the last one, because, the last one really connected with me, but this one, I really like the variety on every track. Like, I think that's a really cool standout, because all these songs have kind of their own area to breathe. They stand out for different reasons. There are some like overlap in terms of ideas, but they complement one another rather than just sounding like retread. When this album is fast and heavy, it is flying. The riffs on here are absolutely fantastic, but the thing that really grabs me in here is melody. These songs are flat out hooky all over the place, and again, for like different reasons. He makes great use of harmonized riffs and, again, lead melody on top of already really killer riffs, just to make them even more killer. And the lead work on here is exceptional, whether it is done by Jacob or his awesome guests. They flat out kill it. If you're a big fan of bands like, I would say, like Necro-Wretch, Melakesh, Sacramentum, maybe even Keep a Kalessin, kind of in that vein of black metal, check this out. I think this is an absolutely fantastic release, and go ahead and just check out their other 2 albums. Trust me, they're also awesome. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel, up in the banner in the bottom right-hand corner. But if you're looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have t-shirts, both old and new. The old ones are discounted, provided we have your size. And we even have hats too, so if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
Tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal. Tons of album reviews. We're only in the midpoint of the year. There's still 6 months left of reviews, and I know there's some killer stuff on the way that we will definitely get to. Got States of Metal. We got Is It Metal, Is It Not Metal? Collection updates, because you know this guy can't ever stop buying CDs. In fact, the idea that there's still room in that other room for more CDs is baffling to me, but there is.
I'm doing my best.
So he's going to keep going. Discography rankings going on. We've got Meshuggah coming up next, which is definitely going to happen here soon as we get everybody in line to go ahead and do that. But that'll be happening. We do it all for you guys. We appreciate you. We thank you, all of our subscribers, our family, our friends, everybody that makes Thralls of Metal into what it is. It was a pleasure running into a bunch of you at MDF. You know, me and this guy are going to go to FTA. I think Miller might go with us too, not 100%. But yeah, we'll be at FTA running around. If you see us, come say hello. We're always more than happy to meet you guys and hang out and take pictures and whatever. Again, it's just part of our thank you to you.
No, yeah, you guys absolutely rule. It's a blast doing this. And again, tons more coming. So one more big thank you
to
you guys, because you're awesome. And we will catch you later.